Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. If this is your first time listening, welcome and thank you for joining the vibe. And if this isn't your first time listening, thank you for continuing on this journey with me. So of course on this episode I've got your news and gossip-ish, but also this is an episode that's going to be used to talk more about some of the talent that's in the BellaDonna Division show Genesis. So today on my episode I have an amazing conversation with the Women's Superstars United World Champion Brittany Blake, and we talk about so many different things, including her wrestling journey and every other interest that she has outside of wrestling too, and it's an amazing conversation. And of course I'm telling you more about the event which takes place next Saturday at the Gaston Mall here in Gaston, Alabama. So sit back, relax, and listen to this amazing episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. All right, so I've got your news and gossip-ish here, and there's some pretty cool stuff going on in the news this week. It was relatively chill this week, not a whole lot of anger, except for maybe one specific person, but of course I'm going to talk about that later. So first on the docket, we have the Vince McMahon TV project that's in the works. So it was revealed that a studio called Filmmaker Studio sent out a casting call for a new television show focused on Vince McMahon, the WWE chairman. And according to WrestlingInc.com's Mark Middleton, the working title of the project is No Chance, the Vince McMahon Story, and the Rise of the New Wrestling World Order. And it will be directed by Joseph Kruger. I think it's funny because I like the first title better because it makes reference to his theme song, which is so iconic, at this point. Because when you hear no chance, that's when you know Vince McMahon is coming out. So I think that's really cool. Team Virgo. So the article also said that the casting call is asking only for interested parties to audition as the host of the show, and the other details regarding the show and its format are relatively sparse. And it's not a movie, but it's a review retrospective that will dig deep in learning not only about Vince McMahon's adversaries, but how he outsmarted them all in associating USA Pro Wrestling with the World Wrestling Federation. And the project, may be a documentary or a documentary series that's focused on him purchasing WWE from his dad in 1982 and bringing it from a Northeastern regional promotion to a national and international power in sports entertainment. So it looks like they're going to talk about his, initial rise, to becoming the promoter and the chairman that we know him as today. And I'm really interested in hearing this because I feel like there's so many stories that you hear about Vince McMahon all the time. And I'm wondering if the McMahon family actually okayed for this to happen, because something that I do find that happens a whole lot, even when people or certain celebrities pass away, you have so many people, who will authorize, a documentary or authorize a movie to be made, but then the family itself or the estate itself doesn't say it's okay. So I'm wondering if the family has okayed this. So I mean, either way, it sounds interesting, but I would feel a little bit more comfortable in knowing that maybe the family said, oh, well, we're okay with this, go ahead, tell this story, because Vince McMahon would be giving them the stories because he's, of course, is alive and of the right mind, as far as we know. So I think that would be cool to see, because I do want to know, what his journeys were, because there's so many things that I've heard, about him rising from various hardships and everything to becoming who he is now. So that would be cool. Also in the news, we have Paul Heyman, talking about how he doesn't want Brock Lesnar to face Roman Reigns. And he also had more nice things to say about Roman Reigns and sort of like what his journey was to making the decision to be Roman Reigns' counsel. So Paul Heyman addressed Brock Lesnar's status in WWE during an interview with DAZN on Thursday. So when he was asked about the possibility of his former client returning to face his current client, Universal Champion Roman Reigns, he said, if Brock Lesnar were to return, as a hypothetical, Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar wants to do. How can you be cognizant of the fact that Brock Lesnar does not want to challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, or at least not yet, is because he hasn't done it. Because if Brock Lesnar wanted to do it, it would have happened already. And it hasn't happened already because he doesn't want to. So, given what it looks like Paul Heyman is basically saying that if Brock Lesnar wanted to challenge him, he would have already done it by now, which is true, because something that a lot of wrestling fans sort of expect is that Brock Lesnar, will pop up during like a Big Four pay-per-view. And in the past couple of months, we've had so many of our Big Four pay-per-views pass by, and there was no Brock Lesnar sighting at all. Like, you thought he was going to pop up at like Survivor Series. You thought he could have popped up at SummerSlam last year. And he definitely didn't pop up during WrestleMania season this year either to try to start some mess, or even beforehand. Because usually they use him to sort of, pull in the casual fan demographic to sort of, do that for WrestleMania, but he hasn't. So I actually think it's for the best, because, in turn you're creating, more opportunity for Paul Heyman to sort of do everything he can with Roman Reigns as the big bad of the WWE division. And not the WWE division, but the company itself, because it's just like, really, like, Roman Reigns, he's just on a whole new level, and he's, doing this star-making performance as the tribal chief and as the head of the table. So I almost feel like Brock Lesnar coming back would sort of ruin that, well, not ruin it, but just sort of put a damper on Roman Reigns being, this big bad here. So I keep talking about him like he's, a super villain in Marvel. Like, I did watch Age of Ultron last night, though, and saw Thanos. So that's kind of what I think of when I see Roman Reigns. He's WWE's Thanos. So, yeah, so that was interesting. Plus, Paul Heyman also had more to say about his reluctance to manage after Brock Lesnar's run. So he said that he could not begin to convey how reluctant he was to ever do anything in this industry after the 8 or 18 years that I put in with Brock Lesnar. He told Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated this. He said, "Look at our accomplishments: a 500-day run as champion, multiple world championships, the single biggest, most historic victory in sports entertainment history in conquering of the streak. There was very little chance of me ever returning on screen." But then he said when the opportunity came to serve as Roman Reigns' special counsel, he realized it was another different chance at chasing greatness. So he was quoted as saying, "For me to pursue in front of the camera life after Brock Lesnar, the only lure that could seduce me to even attempting such an impossible goal was to do it with someone who would live their life in the pursuit of achieving that impossibility. And that's Roman Reigns. And that's why anyone, and that's why everyone should watch Roman Reigns. Every micro moment he's in the frame, you're witnessing the pursuit of the all-time greatest career in the annals of sports, in the annals of entertainment, and in the annals of sports entertainment." And we sort of see that his role, with Roman Reigns is sort of a little bit different from his role with Brock Lesnar, because it seemed like with Brock Lesnar, he was sort of being his talking piece. He was sort of speaking for him in a sense, whereas now he's sort of just a special counsel and he's being led. It's not like Paul Heyman is leading, Brock. It's not like when Paul Heyman was leading Brock Lesnar. It seems like Roman Reigns is leading Paul Heyman, but Paul Heyman is such a good asset to have with that he makes Roman Reigns look more and more fierce with him being led like that. And it is absolutely amazing. So, hey, Paul Heyman is the GOAT, and he's helping to lead Roman Reigns to be even more of a GOAT, with this run. So, and especially after everything that happened last night on SmackDown, which I'll talk more about in my bonus episode, it was awesome. So you just can't beat that. Also in the news, something that is completely red hot, that was red hot on social media Monday, was the return of Eva Marie to the WWE with pink hair this time, not red hair. So we're doing all pink everything instead of all red everything. And once she made her return, like when Raw came on, I was watching it with my boyfriend, and all of a sudden, I see this girl, with the silhouette in this car. And I'm thinking like it's a commercial for something, like a car commercial or like a cologne commercial or something like that. But then Eva Marie pops up and I'm like, whoa, Eva Marie. And I said that out loud. And then all of a sudden she's talking, and she's giving off the impression. And then and then the announcers pop in and I'm just like, oh, okay. So this isn't just a regular commercial. This is a Monday Night Raw thing. Okay. So she makes her return, in a couple weeks. And I'm just like, man, wow. Like I was genuinely surprised at that because there have been all kinds of rumors saying that she could be coming back, but nothing was really full on confirmed or denied. So it's just like, I was just kind of like, okay, well, we just wait and see. But if she doesn't pop up, then it's whatever. But she did pop up, and it's just like, whoa. I was just really shocked, but everybody wasn't happy about that. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Like, I was live tweeting and I was just like, oh, people are pissed. So from what it seems like is that a lot of fans take issue with Eva Marie being hired in the midst and in the wake of WWE firing so many other female talent that they deem a little bit more worthy of having a place in WWE, like the Iconics and like Mickie James and like Chelsea Green. And they're not completely wrong, because when you have all of those talented women who were offering something, a little bit different, it's like, why would you, take all of these talented women away and then seemingly put on a woman who never really wrestled a match in WWE when she was there the first time? She didn't, because she was sort of in that middle ground between them transitioning out of the Diva era into the Women's Evolution era. So everything that she did was to garner heat. And that's smart, because when you're creating a show, you want, your baby face, and you want your faces, but then you also want your heels too. And Eva Marie definitely was a beautiful woman who never really did, fight. And then before she really had a chance to try to, do more, with her fighting, she left the company, or they released her or whatever. And now she's back, and a lot of people are wondering what she's going to do. Now, I did read some reports saying that she had been training at the Performance Center, to, get a little bit better over the past couple of months. So, of course, as she does, transition into the women's division on Raw, we'll see more of what she has been doing. But a lot of people were just really mad and did not want to see her there. So, and one of the people who did react to it on social media was Mickie James. And she was discussing the topic on an appearance on Renee Young's podcast called Oral Sessions. And she said, honestly, I think it's incredible that she's been able to step away and still remain relevant, rebrand herself, and almost excel outside. Not everybody does that. I don't think her wrestling ability was ever her strength. I know she has been down at NXT working on stuff, so I don't know. I don't think the wrestling bit was ever her thing. I feel there's always been, even going back to old school wrestling, that there's a role for everybody. And not everybody has to be a 5-star wrestler or whatever and have dream matches. That doesn't have to be a thing if their character is strong and they can sell tickets, get ratings. I guess it works. So basically, she also went on to say that it's ironic because to the fans, they go, well, you just had all these budget cuts. You let all these people go and you debut somebody else. But they always debut new talent after WrestleMania as well. And then she also proceeded to praise Eva Marie a whole lot more by saying she's beautiful and stunning. And I do have mad respect in the sense that she has 1 million followers and has been able to rebrand herself and really do a whole other thing outside of wrestling once she left. Me being an entrepreneur, and I'm always looking at stuff, I completely respect that side of her. If she can capitalize on all of this heat and just kind of go, yeah, so that's where the real everybody will hate her and it'll be great for her. So it seems like Mickie James doesn't have anything negative to say about Eva Marie itself, but then ventured to say that maybe wrestling wasn't her, wasn't one of her strengths. But then again, the standard for wrestling can't necessarily be so high to the point that we expect so many of our women's wrestlers or so many wrestlers as a whole to just be great all the time and have all these 5-star matches, because all of these women don't have those abilities. And that's not dissing them, but that's just real. Some of these women, came through a different system and a different background than just the independents, and stuff like that. So we can't just expect, so much greatness from the women, in terms of having a 5-star matches all the time, greatness all the time, blah, 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 because I'm pretty sure there are some male wrestlers who could go in and have less than a 5-star match, but we wouldn't necessarily say anything about that. So why can't the women do the same? And we can't just, we can't always necessarily expect, these type of 5-star matches from the women, just as the same thing as we wouldn't expect 5-star matches from the men all the time either. Like, let them chill out sometimes and let women be able to do different things and let them, go towards what their abilities are and what their niches are and let them adapt to that. But at the same time, when it comes to Eva Marie, I also found out some information about her that was kind of problematic for me as a black woman. I found out that she may have said some unsavory things about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee to protest police brutality. And that, of course, makes me feel some type of way, because I'm just like, ma'am, like, what's the issue with that? Like, why is that a problem for you? I mean, it was just it was a whole lot to deal with in terms of social media. And I'm just like, it sort of makes me look at her in a whole new way, because at first I was just sort of looking at her as an athlete, but now I'm looking at her as a woman and as a person like, oh, so you don't think that, this protesting was necessary? Okay, ma'am. But that's all I'm going to say about that, because I won't go into that any more than I already have. Also, finally in the news, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 probably being the last time we'll see Dave Bautista's role as Drax. So, Bautista told Digital Spy in an interview that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is a Marvel movie that's set to come out within the next few years, because they did do a whole release and a whole trailer going over all the movies and series that's set to be released within the next couple of years. Oh my God, it's amazing. So that movie is part of that, is a part of that cluster of movies. And he said that Drax the Destroyer might be the last time we see him in Volume 3. He stayed quiet. Bautista has stayed quiet on what the plot details are, but he has yet to see what the latest script contains. And he's stated as saying, I don't know what the script of the third movie is, to be honest with you. There was a script years ago that obviously is going to have to change, because the whole direction of the Marvel universe has changed. But then he also said that there were talks for a while about a Drax and Mantis film. And it was really because it was James Gunn's idea. He really wanted to do a Drax and Mantis film. He laid it out to me. I thought it was such a brilliant idea, but I haven't heard any follow-up from the studio. I don't think they're very interested, or it doesn't fit into the way they've mapped out. But other than that, no. I mean, as far as my obligations, I've got Guardians 3, and that's probably going to be the end of Drax. So, but then they also asked him if it was possible it would be for a TV series, but then he said there's not a chance that he would reprise the role in that format for a TV show. So a part of me is a little bit sad that after Volume 3, that would be it, because Drax's character is so funny. Like, he's super funny. And I actually need to go back and actually watch all of the rest of the movies, just to basically remind myself of how funny, Drax was and is, because I know when I went to see Infinity War, like, his whole "why is Gamora" thing just made me laugh so hard that I couldn't even breathe. But I don't talk about that movie that much, because that was a very traumatizing experience. But Bautista is, a pretty wanted man in terms of action movies. So I'm pretty sure he'll have other stuff to do in terms of, being an action star. So I'm not necessarily worried about him, falling off or whatever once he does leave the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But sometimes, the Marvel Cinematic Universe can be very all-encompassing. So we'll see how that goes. Plus, I'm also waiting for him to get put into the Hall of Fame when there's an audience there, because he was supposed to go in this year, but it didn't happen. So, anytime there's more Bautista, you can't go wrong with that. So that's it for news and gossipish. And now we're going to go into my amazing talk with Brittany Blake. Special guest with me today. She is the reigning WSU world champion, and I get to be on the same show as her next weekend at the BellaDonna Division show Genesis. This is Brittany Blake. Brittany, how are you, my dear?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, so I'm going to start the interview by asking the question I ask all of my guests, and that's, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
I don't know the exact date. It was definitely like Attitude Era timing. I want to say between like 97, 98-ish. But basically, my dad used to put on wrestling when me and my brother were kids, and our parents were divorced, so he had us for Sundays and Mondays. Mm-hmm. So we were always either watching wrestling on Sunday nights or Monday nights, and we kind of fell in love with it back then. But for me, the moment I fell in love with it was the day that Lita debuted. That was the moment I was like, I want to do this.
Oh, cool. It's so amazing you mentioned Lita. Like, she's one of the greats, right? And I feel Absolutely. Like a lot of people who watched wrestling or became a women's wrestler, you know, during or saw the Attitude Era, but then wanted to go forth and pursue wrestling as a woman, it's like Lita is definitely one of the main people that people mention. So that's really Absolutely. Cool. So the Attitude Era is kind of when I started watching wrestling myself as well, right in the heat of the Monday Night Wars. So that's kind of when I sort of got into it. And my dad actually watched wrestling with me too. So it's that's pretty awesome. Interesting how we have that in common there.
I love that.
Yeah. So when exactly did you know that you wanted to pursue it as a career?
Well, I would say since I was, you know, in middle school, I started dressing like Lita, but it was one of those, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be a diva. But I didn't really pursue it until quite a few years later. I lived under a rock. I didn't know indie wrestling existed until 2012. I was working at a comic book convention, and a friend of mine had offered to take me to a wrestling show that was happening a few blocks away, and it ended up being a Chikara show. And I was like, I had no idea this was so close to where I lived, which was in Jersey at the time. Mm-hmm. And after that day, so that was April or May of 2012, and I started looking into wrestling schools. I started saving up, and I started training a couple months later. So it was that show, and ironically, I actually met Lita that day. So I was working at the convention, I was on my break, and I went over to her table, and I introduced myself, and I met her. I got a picture with her, and I met her, I met Paul Bearer, and then I went to my first indie show, and then I fell in love with indie wrestling like that same day. It was a very good day for wrestling for me.
Oh, that's amazing that you met her too, like right on that day in which you started. And Paul Bearer? That's and really Paul Bearer, rare
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a documentary about him that they did during the whole 30 Days of the Undertaker thing that they did on the network before it moved to Peacock. And I learned so much about him, and it's so funny. He's actually from Alabama. And yeah, and right around the time I was watching it, it was when I found out that he was a funeral director and stuff, which is, I was weirdly enough working at a cemetery office, you know, while I was watching this. So it was just kind of amazing how with my podcast and me sort of getting into the wrestling business itself for right now, because I'm commentating next weekend, and then, you know, watching him, you know, do it while also working a regular job was just kind of like, wow. It's like you never truly know what you have in common with certain people. But I think it's so great that you met Lita and was able to do that. I feel like that's almost like it was meant to be, and that was full circle for you.
I feel the same way, and it's so crazy too, because a couple years ago, my fiance, he got to tag with her at an indie show. Aww. I was so jealous. So I was like watching them call their match, like, I want to be a part of this, but I will live vicariously through him.
Oh, cool. So your partner's a wrestler as well?
He is, yes.
Amazing. I love loving wrestling. It's amazing.
Me too.
Okay. So how exactly did you pursue training once you decided to go all the way in on wrestling?
Yeah, so I was looking into different schools in the area, and originally I was trying to find, because I didn't really know how wrestling schools worked. I didn't have an in, I didn't have anyone like saying, oh, you should go here, you should go there. So originally I was trying to find an all-girls school or something, so I didn't know I could train with guys. And I couldn't find that. At one point, I think I found it was like the old like Ring of Honor, Sparkle, something, and it was like, it wasn't a real thing anymore. And then it came down to Chikara and CZW, and because I had gone to the Chikara show, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go here. Mm-hmm. And it just one of those things. It didn't really mesh for me. I went for maybe a month or two there, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I was learning. It didn't feel like they saw any potential in me. So I went to CZW, and also just like I put, like, when I do something, I do 110% at Jakar at the time. I don't know what their training's like. Actually, I don't think they train at all now, but like I don't know if it ever changed, but it was like a once a week thing, and I need it more than once a week in the ring. And at CZW, I could do 4 times a week. And it's funny because at both schools, Drew Gulak was one of the trainers. So I went from Jakar to CZW, and he was there at both schools, and I was like, oh no. And I thought he hated me because I jumped ship, essentially. But he was real tough on me, but he's, has a lot to do with how I am in the ring today and who I am today. And he was one of the people that really trained me. So going to CZW and getting to get in the ring 4 times a week from 6 o'clock at night until, who knows, some nights I would be there until midnight. So getting that much ring time, I think, really was what helped me the most.
Wow. So it seems that you had a very dedicated, mindset in terms of it. Like, you did not stop. So you were kind of like the first one there and the last one out.
Absolutely. And I was so dedicated. A couple months into it, I broke my leg at training, and I showed up the very next day. I was still showing up every single day, even though I couldn't get in the ring. I was still there every day, just watching, trying to learn as much as I could. Doing when I was kind of getting better, I was starting to do like things on one leg just to get into the ring. I was, doing rolls on one leg. I was doing like squats, and I was doing as much as I possibly could on one leg. I did not want people to think I was gonna quit because I broke my leg. That, to me, that wasn't a reason to quit, even though any other sane person would probably be like, yeah, you know what, maybe I shouldn't keep doing this.
Yeah, a lot of people probably would have given up, but that's just a testament to your willpower and your determination to be, the best wrestler you wanted to be at that time. So that's really, admirable that you did that, because I know I would have gave up. I can't stand pain. Like, I hate pain. So if it was me, I'd be like, no.
That was the worst pain
and
I've
went
ever
home.
been in. I came home from that. So like, I went to the hospital that night to see if it was actually broken, and it was. And I came home on crutches, and my mom goes, so I guess you're done, huh? And I was like crutching, I'm like, over my dead body. I'm like crutching past her, like,
No. Okay, so you mentioned that you did training with Drew Gulak, who is on WWE TV, and actually was on TV last night. He got beat by
Not his best moment.
Yeah, he got beat by Angel Garza last night and got a rose up his butt. So that was funny. But you mentioned how he was one of your trainers. So which one of his lessons have you applied the most in your career?
This might sound weird considering, he's known for like his technical ability, and like I did learn a lot of technical things from him, but the biggest thing that Drew has done for me has been psychologically. He doesn't, tell you what you want to hear, and he won't even give you necessarily like an answer. Like if you ask, what did I do wrong? He'll be like, well, what do you think you did wrong? And he'll kind of pick apart things. So he made me look at things differently. He made me, really analyze everything that I do. And I think that has been, something that I didn't expect in training. And I feel like a lot of people might not get that. They might just go and, do the work. He's always getting me out of my comfort zone. And I mean, it's crazy because he doesn't have to do it. He's been, on the main roster for quite a few years now. He doesn't have to help me still. He's still sending me homework to do, and hey, try this at training, try this. And I'm like, he's still, my trainer at the end of the day,
Yeah, and it's so good to hear that he's actually that hands-on with you even still now, because you would think, from mainstream exposure that they wouldn't have time for that kind of thing. But just to see that he's that hands-on with you, and then so many other wrestlers, because he, if I'm not mistaken, helped train Bad Bunny, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I heard as well. I didn't ask him that, but I know that's what I heard. And it's not just me. I know other people that I came up with, that he helped train. He still is doing the same thing, like giving them homework, asking them, hey, what are you doing on this day? And how many shows are you, right? He's always staying on us. So, that's, to me, dedication.
Yeah, it's amazing. And he's an amazing technical wrestler. I enjoyed almost every match he had, definitely last year with Daniel Bryan, who was another amazing technical wrestler.
That was a great match.
I definitely enjoy him as a wrestler, and I have now greater respect for him even as a trainer now. Do you still find time to practice your craft? Of course, I know it's been rough with the pandemic and everything, but do you still find time to practice when you can outside of your own schedule of wrestling and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been harder because originally I'm from Jersey. I used to live 5 minutes from the school, so it was so easy before. And then I moved down to Maryland, which is where my partner lives. And it's great having a partner that is a wrestler, because even when we can't get to the ring, and we just moved into a new apartment, which is way bigger than our last place. So we have all this floor space. I'm like, hey, you want to try this out? Like the other night, I got an idea for a match. And I was like, hey, can you be a guinea pig for me real quick? So we've been getting to the school more now that vaccines are more of a thing and COVID's better. But for a while, for the last year, up until about a month ago, we would go to the wrestling school by ourselves and just the two of us work on stuff, because we didn't want to risk a group setting, you know what I mean? But I mean, I always find a way to get in a ring.
Well, that's really cool to hear. And then the fact that your partner also helps you, continue to try to get better, and the both of you have tried to practice even in this difficult time is really amazing. I always believe that a partner isn't a partner until they help you, unless they're helping you get better in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good to hear that you have that type of partner, and the fact that you're still making time for it, even in the midst of this difficult time. So I want to ask you, how has the pandemic affected your career in terms of, touring or doing shows or whatnot, and how have you been able to manage with that?
It's been hard. It's been a roller coaster. Up until I guess October. So from March until October of last year, I didn't wrestle at all. I had my last match was the middle of March against Tasha Steeles, and there's no crowd, and we didn't know how long that was going to be a regular thing. And then it was like 2 days later, everything got shut down. So I didn't do anything until October, and I had gotten asked about a few bookings, especially like outdoor ones, but I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't know how things were going to progress. And then I didn't take a booking again until October, which was, I did Shimmer for the Collective. And I'm glad I did it. And, they were as safe as they could be. Everyone had to, take a test afterwards. And, thankfully mine came back negative. But it was, to me, a little concerning just seeing so many people, even the spaced out, so many people in the locker rooms. And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable. So now that vaccines are more of a thing and things are getting a little bit safer, I feel more comfortable taking bookings again. I just took the BellaDonna booking 2 weeks ago, and that's my first booking back. So it's been hard, and it's been weird too, because when the pandemic happened, I kind of almost wanted to mentally check out and give myself a mental break from wrestling, because wrestling is tough, not just on your body, but mentally. It can be really hard sometimes. And I really took a long mental break when everything was happening. I was like, I didn't really want to be on social media that much. I didn't really want to connect with it, just because I needed a reset. So when I came back mentally, even though I wasn't back physically yet, it was still a weird transition, because everyone was still, going 110% on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm like, I needed that break. I needed that mental reset. But now I think, I've had plenty of time mentally, physically. I'm just itching to get back in.
I imagine you would be, because it's just to go all this time not doing something that has been a part of you for so long, and for it to sort of just come to a stop all of a sudden had to be the scariest thing on the planet. And then you having to even slow down is even a good thing, because when we get on social media, and I can even speak to this as a podcaster, you see everybody else and all of your friends posting and doing stuff and getting stuff out there, and you feel like you're missing out. And it's just but you really have to take yourself out of it sometimes, because otherwise it will swallow you whole, and you won't have anything else left. And then you'll look up, and then you feel like you've missed a whole lot, in your own life outside of that. So I definitely commend you for that, and for bouncing back with this show that's coming up, which we will get into a little bit later. So how has the culture of independent wrestling, treated you, as you've evolved?
That's a question. It's been a roller coaster. I mean, especially my first, 2 years, all I did was, eat, breathe, sleep, wrestling. At the time, I didn't have a job. I was just doing training. I was going to college. So I was just so engulfed in it, and sometimes kind of blinded in ways. A lot of red flags you don't see until, you know, you're more experienced. So it was kind of like a honeymoon phase in the beginning, and you couldn't see anything wrong, and then, you know, one day someone like rips off the band-aid and it's like, ooh, there's all this bad shit too. I don't know if I can curse on here, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But there's all this bad stuff too. So then it kind of became a way of like navigating the drama and the, you know, trying to weed out the good people from the bad people, from the toxic people, people who are just trying to use you. And so it became like a honeymoon phase into like more of a learning phase. And again, having a partner, my fiance's been in the business 15 or if not longer years. So I mean, having someone genuinely look out for me, you know, that's a plus too. And having someone, you know, saying, hey, watch out for that red flag, and hey, just be careful with this, you know, it helps having someone do that. So I feel like, you know, and I've been more selective with like certain bookings and like try not to get taken advantage of. So that's another thing I've tried to navigate over the years. So I'm at the point now where it's like a quality over quantity point in wrestling, because before I would just jump at every little opportunity, like, yeah, I'll do this and this and this, and then it's like you're getting taken advantage of. So I feel like right before the pandemic, I was in a good place. I was taking bookings I genuinely wanted to do. I was working in really good places. So I think I'm going to continue that once wrestling starts up again. The bookings I'm taking are places I genuinely want to work with, women I really want to work with. So I think right now we're just going back to that path of like, you know, quality over quantity.
That's a really good evolution there. It's sort of like you started off, you know, as with people, you know, when you start off with a thing, you think it's the most amazing thing in the world, and then something, you know, pops up to sort of make you realize, okay, you know, to sort of test you, to make you see, you know, to make you think about whether or not this is really, you know, for you, or if you can take the hard times. And it seems like you have a good mind and you have a sense of discernment in knowing what you do and what you don't necessarily want to do. Because a lot of people, because I know I've been told a lot of times that there are some people in the business who can mean you really good, but then there are also, you have to watch out for those who, you know, have a little bit of a front, but then deep down inside they could, you know, have ulterior motives. So it's good to hear that you've actually, you know, navigated that. And also in terms of, you know, independent wrestling, you know, have you developed a fan base? Because I love hearing about wrestlers and the type of fans that they've, you know, experienced. So have you had a fan base you're building?
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be the weirdos that are, you know, asking super inappropriate questions. I feel like that just comes with the territory. But the people that I consider like my core fan base are just like nerds who love wrestling. Because before wrestling, I was a cosplayer. So some of them kind of followed me into the wrestling realm. So my favorite fans are the ones I can kind of like nerd out with too. We can talk about wrestling, we can talk about video games, anime. So that's really fun. My favorite thing ever is doing cosplay wrestling. And those are like the best fans because they love everything you do. There are some fans where they might like you in the sense of they follow you on social media, but then in the ring they either boo you when they're not supposed to be booing you, or they think you should be doing more stuff. Like, especially like places in like working in Philly and parts of Jersey, that can be a really tough crowd sometimes. So places like doing cosplay wrestling, they're the nicest, easiest crowd. They cheer everything. Everything is like they saw wrestling for the first time. So those are my favorite fans. But as a whole, like I love my fan base. They're super supportive, and you know I love you know, being nerdy with people.
So you mentioned cosplay wrestling. Is that like a different type of wrestling where you dress up as different characters or something like that? Like it's like a combination of the two?
Yeah, so everyone's trained and everything. It's not like a bunch of backyard. At least the two places I work. I'm sure there are some backyarders, but there's two places in particular I've worked. One is actually called Cosplay Pro Wrestling, and they're a lot of the local guys in like the Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. And I love working. It's just so much fun. Like we've worked for Anime Next. We've done CPAC, we've done too many games. There's a bunch of like that northeast area conventions that they work, and then there's another company called FSCW, and they work with a lot of like the super cons and everything. And I feel like they have kind of more of a higher budget because they'll bring in like names from the convention and everything. So I mean, both are so fun. Like I don't think I have a preference. Like it's all cosplay wrestling to me. But yeah, basically you dress up as a character. I've been Sailor Jupiter. I've been Blake from Ruby. I've been Android 18, Wii Fit Trainer. I've been a ton of characters, and sometimes I'll do multiple characters on one show. I love it. It's my favorite thing ever.
That is so cool, because I know when I watch wrestling on television, like, I absolutely love it when people get their gear made to look like a specific character, or to make it look like a cartoon character or something like that. Like, I'll never forget how Alexa Bliss came out and she had Buzz Lightyear gear. And that was just the cutest thing to me, because I love Disney and she does too. So it's just kind of like, and then you have Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, you know, they'll come out as different characters. One time he was Iron Man, another time he was Wolverine. Like, I just love stuff like that. So just to know that there's wrestling federations that have cosplay in it too, that's amazing.
They're fun.
Yeah, I've only done cosplay maybe twice. Like, I was Captain Marvel for a Comic-Con here in Alabama once.
You would be such a good Captain Marvel too.
Oh, really? Oh, that makes me feel so good inside. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, man. But yeah, and then I was Wonder Woman 1984 with a golden suit for Halloween last year.
Awesome.
So that was fun.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So you mentioned behind the scenes when we had talked a little bit before that you had traveled internationally. So where's been some of your favorite places to wrestle and go outside the United States?
So it's a weird thing. So I wrestled in Canada, and I actually really like working in Canada. I've only really been in like the eastern part. I think I wasn't in Toronto. It was right outside Toronto. That was fun. And then it's funny because I've been to Japan, but I haven't wrestled there, but I've wrestled for Stardom and Marvelous in the States. So I've worked for Japanese companies in the States, but I've been to Japan. So I mean, honestly, if I could wrestle in Japan, that's always been like my biggest dream, and like the top of my list is wrestling in Japan. And then I also would love to like wrestle in Europe, but like Japan is like top tier. But I always want to travel. Like, I've always wanted to travel and wrestle across the whole world, but right now I've only wrestled in the States and then in Canada.
Okay. And it seems like Canada seems like one of those great wrestling nations to go to, because you know they have so many legends from there. So I can imagine their wrestling is like a huge deal up there. I've never been to Canada, but I would love to go at some point. It would be cool.
It's really pretty up there.
That's what I hear.
Everyone's so nice.
Yeah, that's what I hear. So maybe one day I'll get a chance to go.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so right now you are the reigning Women Superstars United World Champion, and I imagine that has to be a really good feeling. So, and you defeated Chris Statlander for that title?
I did.
Okay, so I was exposed to her via AEW.
Okay.
That was the first time I had ever seen her, so I thought that her character was really cool too in terms of how she wrestles. So what was it like, you know, going into that match and, you know, winning that championship, and how you able to basically, you know, keep it for that long?
Yeah, there's so many layers to winning that title at that show in particular. Working with Chris was so much fun. I've been looking forward to working with her for so long at that point. There were a couple other like WSU shows that we kept missing each other. It was, I couldn't be at a show and then she couldn't be at a show. We kept missing each other. And I was like, man, I really want to work with her. We're so different in like characters and personality and size. Like, I can do a bunch of my high flying stuff, and you know, she would be able to base for everything. So for me, so I came from CZW, and my first time in a ring was at WSU. It was a battle royal in 2013. And it's funny too, because I used to travel on the road a lot, and back when Lufisto was the women's champion, they had gotten a new belt, and I was the one carrying that new belt to, like, you know, while we were traveling. So I was technically the first woman to hold that belt. And I remember that night that I was transporting it, I took it out of the bag and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm never gonna have this belt. Like, this is not obtainable for me. And I was like, that was in 2014. I was so down on myself, and I was wrestling Lufisto that weekend as well. And that was at that point the biggest match I ever had, and I was so looking forward to it. She was so wonderful. But I didn't have the confidence in myself that I would ever be the world champion for WSU. I thought maybe at most the Spirit, maybe the tag, but I never thought I'd be the world champion. So fast forward to when they relaunched, they had like new writers, new bookers, and all that stuff. And I slowly started like making my way up the ranks. And then because, like I said, me and Chris kept missing each other at the shows, the only show that would have worked for both of us was the CZW Cage of Death show.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously I'm from CZW, so that was cool. And I actually made when I had debuted for CZW way back when, it was at Cage of Death. So to me, the whole thing felt full circle. I won, the WCU World Championship at Cage of Death, where I made my CZW debut a few years before. So the whole thing felt very like full circle to me. It was very emotional. And of course, the belt actually wasn't there when I won it, so like it was a little anticlimactic, but yeah, it was like they were sending it back from like, it was coming from like Mexico or somewhere, and they didn't have the belt in hand when I won it. So like, I'm just like holding up this like imaginary belt, like I'll Photoshop it in later. It's fine.
Well, that's a pretty funny story to hear, the fact that it wasn't actually there, because, everybody has their moment with the title, after they win it. It's like, oh my God, I won the title. And they can either be really excited, swinging around like Seth Rollins, or cry, or, lift it in the air and all that. But you didn't have that. You had to wait.
I feel like if I did have it, I think I would have cried. I honestly feel like I might have cried if I had it in my hand. So like, I guess it's good because I don't like to cry in public. So like, especially because I wear so much like dark makeup, it would just be like black mascara running down my face.
Yeah. See, I just love watching people win titles. Like, that's one of I didn't realize that was something I really loved until I watched Paige win the Divas title.
My God.
Like, when she debuted, oh my God, when she debuted and beat AJ Lee, and then they showed the backstage reaction, and she was crying, and I just started crying, and I kept watching it back over and over again, and that's when I realized I really love watching footage like that.
I
love
cried
it
when that happened. Well, I mean, the Sasha Bianca one.
Oh yes, definitely.
I cried, like, done.
Oh my God, me too. That match meant the world to me. Of course, personally as a Black woman, and then just seeing, Bianca rise, to where she is now, from where she started. She didn't start off wanting to be a wrestler or through the indies like a lot of people. So to see her get to that point after only having so many years experience, and then have all this talent.
But she did the work,
Yeah, she put in the work. And then to go up against someone like Sasha Banks, who is, in my opinion, the greatest female wrestler of all time. It's just, it was just an incredible thing. And to see her win, and to see her celebrate with her husband too, who's just,
that melted my heart.
Oh God, it was so amazing. Like, oh my God. And then he was holding her up on his shoulders, and it reminded me so much of Randy holding up Miss Elizabeth, and it was just like, this is so cool. But yeah,
I know.
it was so funny. So who has been your favorite opponent so far, and do you have any dream opponents?
Ooh, okay. Man, there's so many opponents that I love working with. I know as far as dream opponents go, I literally just made a list the other day. And I know the top people on that list are like Lainey Luck and Masha. Oh my God, I'm gonna blank out on names. But as far as favorite opponents go, Zoe Sky, and she's one of my favorite opponents. We always have really good matches. And they're always different too. Like there are people who I wrestle, and it's like we have good matches, but it's kind of the same thing every time. Another person who was not my favorite opponent at first, but became my favorite opponent, and I'm very bummed that I don't get to wrestle her anymore, is Penelope Ford. Mm-hmm. We came up kind of together. I was a couple months ahead of her, and she was one of those people who, like, wasn't into wrestling, didn't really. Not saying she didn't care, but like she just didn't. To me, as someone who grew up watching wrestling, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder about it. Like, oh, who's this girl who's only coming to training, certain days of the week, and doesn't seem like she's taking it seriously. She doesn't even know what Stone Cold Stunners are. Like, I had a very big chip on my shoulder at the time, and it took a road trip with her, to like, she became one of my favorite people on that road trip. Like, and she says the same thing about me. She's like, oh, I thought you were a bitch, but we had like really bonded on that road trip, and our first couple of matches were awful, like the worst. And then as time went on, our last couple of matches together were some of my absolute favorites. And then for a quick minute, we were tagging together. So I'm bummed I lost a tag partner. I lost one of my favorite opponents. So I'm hoping I can like weasel my way into AEW. and wrestle people like her. Layla's amazing to wrestle. Chris obviously is amazing to wrestle. There's so many fantastic, like, just so many talented women in wrestling right now. Like, it's insane. Like, when I started, I feel like there were barely any women. I feel like at the time, like, 'cause Shimmer at the time was my biggest goal, and I love working for Shimmer. But I feel like at the time, Shimmer held all of the good female wrestlers, and now there's so many other talented rosters around. Shimmer will always, to me, be like the highest of the highest, but there's so many women that are amazing that haven't quite made it to Shimmer yet, that there's just too many. There's too many talented female wrestlers now.
Okay, and it's so funny.
But I mean that in like a good way, like the best possible way.
Yeah, I figured you meant it in a positive way. It's funny you mentioned that, because now I have a good question that I ask all my female wrestlers is, how do you feel about the state of women's wrestling in the independent, from an independent standpoint and from a mainstream standpoint?
Mm-hmm. So as a mainstream standpoint, I remember sitting on my couch when the whole like women's evolution thing happened, because when I started training, I was kind of told that like there's maybe 5 of you in the tri-state northeast area. You're probably going to work the same people. You're probably going to have 5-minute matches. That's with your entrances. Like, they kind of set the bar for us very low. Mm-hmm. So indie wise, and even mainstream wise, you kind of saw the same thing. The women were getting like minute-long matches, and so it was kind of mirroring each other in a way. And then I feel like the indie scene kind of picked up, and they were doing more women's matches. They were doing intergender stuff, and then as that picked up, I feel like the mainstream started to kind of follow that as well. So I just see it getting better and better, and I'm so glad there's so many more women's promotions. I'm so glad that shows are having more than just one, like, women's, like, bathroom break match. Now women are getting, matches that are just as long as the guys, if not longer, or they're getting intergender matches. There's a show I'm doing the weekend after BellaDonna, Pro Wrestling After Dark, and I believe there's 2 women's matches and an intergender match on the card. Like, they try to keep their card pretty split down the middle, and I really appreciate that we're not just a sideshow attraction anymore. Same with like tag team wrestling. I don't think there should be just one on the show. It shouldn't be attraction matches. I like that everything's getting its equality.
Okay, and then you mentioned we did mention earlier how you're going to be participating in the Genesis show held by the BellaDonna Division next weekend, and I am so excited for that, so I can see you in action for the very first time. So what has been your preparation going into your match going up against Trixie?
Yeah, so like I said before, I mean, this is even before I knew I was going to be wrestling for BellaDonna. I've been going to the wrestling school more. I've been trying to, just work on my older moves and kind of making sure there's no ring rust on anything. So first, I always want to straighten up and clean up what I already do before I try to move on to something else. So I have been working on some new stuff, but a lot of it's been, trying to work about like my ring cardio and getting some ring rust off. I'm not going to have it in time for the show, but I'm in the process of having new gear made. So I'm just really excited to kind of like, not recreate myself, but just kind of like upgrade myself a bit. So, I've definitely been prepping for that match, but I'm prepping as a whole for, all the matches I have coming up now.
Okay, and had you ever faced Trixie before? Nope.
No, this will be first. This will be a first time. I love first time matches because I love seeing what other people can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because my next couple of matches I have are all first time matches. So I'm just really excited to get in there and work with new people.
Well, I'm so excited for you, and I just cannot wait to see you and talk about how awesome you are at the table and everything. That's going to be really cool. And it's so funny, you're saying there's a lot of similarities we have. It's like you saying this is going to be your first few matches back. This is going to be my first time commentating ever. So this is going to be a fun first time thing, but I'm really excited for it.
You're going to kill it. You're going to do so well.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. So who inspires you the most as an athlete?
Ooh, it's interesting because I really didn't watch I played sports in like middle school. I played basketball and stuff, but I never really idolized any athletes per se, other than professional wrestlers. Like I said before, Lita was a big inspiration. As far as wrestlers go, I was a big Eddie Guerrero fan. I was a big Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian fan. And then as time progressed, like I became really big into AJ Lee when I started wrestling. So like all of my athletes that I look up to are all wrestlers. Before that, the only athletes I looked up to were figure skaters, because I was really into figure skating when I was younger, and that's and I could never I could never. I'm not that coordinated.
Yeah, that's cool. You have a lot of good favorites in terms of like Eddie Guerrero. He's definitely one of my favorites. And then you mentioned AJ Lee too. Like she was definitely one of my favorites as well. I think it's like in thinking about AJ Lee like right now and how she was known as the geek goddess, I can't help but feel like, she sort of opened the door for a lot of women or just wrestlers, who are male or female, to sort of be open with the things that they like that are sort of looked at as nerdy or whatever. So I definitely like loved and appreciated her.
Another reason I love AJ Lee is because when I was a kid and I was like, I want to be a diva when I grow up. I haven't grown since the 6th grade. I've been waiting for my growth spurt since I was 11 and it never came. So everyone's like, oh, you're not going to be big enough to be a wrestler. Like you're not going to be big enough to be a diva. And I really held on to that for a long time. And then when I started watching wrestling again, because I feel like I took a break from watching wrestling for a few years, I lost my interest in it. But when I started watching it again, I saw AJ Lee, and AJ Lee is essentially the same size as me. So it was really cool seeing a petite, nerdy girl with such athleticism and charisma. And I was like, I can do this. Like, I can be that. And then finding out later on, after I started training, that she used to wrestle for WSU and she was a former WSU champion. So that made it even cooler to me, that I felt like this like weird invisible bond with her, even though I've never talked to her. I've met her once, but like I never said anything. I was just like shaking her hand, hi, I'm Brittany, and then like I scurried off because I was shy. But I feel like there's an invisible bond with her, even though we've never had a conversation.
See, that's funny because the first time I saw AJ Lee, it's like there was this point where her and Caitlyn were always getting beat up by Natalya and Beth Phoenix, and that used to make me sad a little bit because I was like, man, like, are they gonna win? Like please win. And then it's like she evolved into this, amazing character and became, and basically, she basically became the prerequisite, to the women's, evolution on mainstream television, as we know it.
Absolutely.
And then I also hated her.
She definitely has.
And then I hated her too.
You hated her?
My boyfriend had a crush on her. That's why. That's all. He had a crush on her in the beginning of our relationship. It's okay. I can joke about it now, but back then I was just like, come on. But it was only because he had a crush on her, and it's just like, really. But other than that, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. It's not like I hated her as a wrestler. She was great as a wrestler and as a character, but when he had a crush on her, I was like, no. But either way.
You're like, excuse me?
Right.
I'm trying to find this picture.
That's all. Nothing serious.
I'm trying to find this picture for you so you can see. I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, but because I cosplay, and one of my first cosplays when I started wrestling was AJ Lee.
Oh my god, you look just like her. That's cool.
And it's funny too, she ended up sharing that on her Twitter, and I was like, senpai noticed me.
Oh, that is so cool. Oh, that's amazing. And then those Converse too. You cannot go wrong with Chuck Taylors. I have so many pair.
It's true.
I remember one time I saw her wrestle. She actually had on a pair of Converse that I actually owned myself. And I flipped out. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And it was the first pair of Converse my boyfriend ever bought me too, because he has a pair for Joker and he bought me the Harley Quinn pair. And they were kind of like purple. And it was purple and black and red and black. And that was mine. And then she had them on, I think when Dolph Ziggler cashed in on Alberto Del Rio's, when she had them on. And I was like, those are my shoes. I freaked out. Oh, it was so funny.
That's awesome.
Yes. So I guess now the best question to ask you is, what does the future hold for Brittany Blake?
I feel like it's still too soon to tell, but currently I know I have, like I said, we have a BellaDonna Division show coming up. I have another show in North Jersey for Pro Wrestling After Dark. I have a couple other things that haven't been like announced yet that are coming up too, but I feel like it's too soon to tell. I feel like everything's starting to open back up again, and I feel like opportunities are starting to like come to surface again. So I feel like this is going to be a good year for me. I'm hoping there's a lot more traveling this year because I have missed traveling. So hopefully more traveling, more shows now that things are getting back. But yeah, too soon to tell exactly what that might be.
Okay. But I'm pretty sure, whenever everything does open back up, you'll be, knocking everybody down and, breaking barriers and all of the above. So I'm excited for you. And I'm so excited to see you next weekend. So thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. So if you could, if you mind, put yourself over and tell people where they can find you and follow you on social media, and tell them anything else that you've got going on.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook at Brittany Blake. My Twitter is at Brittany Blake _. My Instagram is the Brittany Blake. I technically have a Twitch channel. I haven't been very active on it, but that's also under Brittany Blake. Basically, if you Google me, all of my social media should come up. But for the most part, I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook, I'm working on it. I'm working on getting more social on there. But thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun talking. I don't do a lot of podcasts, so when I do, I get very chatty.
Yeah, and that's okay because, I'm chatty too. So, when two chatty people get together, a great conversation happens. So
yes,
this was amazing, and I really enjoyed having you on here. I also have a bonus question, if I can ask you.
Yeah.
I saw you have a YouTube channel where
Yes.
you sort of, talk about a lot of the video games and stuff that you play. So what are your favorite video games?
Hands down, my favorite video game is the Persona series. It's hard to rank them. I do think Persona 5 might be the best game out of all of them, but it's real close with Persona 3. So the Persona series is a favorite. The Danganronpa series is a favorite. I will always love Pokemon. I'm currently playing Pokemon Snap in the other room. And as far as games that are coming out, The World Ends With You has a new game coming out in June or July that I'm looking forward to. I like a lot of JRPGs. I like JRPGs and I like fighting games. Those are my two genres of choice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hands down, Persona will always be my favorite. I don't know, well, probably can't see it, but I have all these shelves of Persona figures, and then
oh wow,
Sailor Moon's up there, and all of my Marvel stuff is on that side. But yeah, I have a bad obsession with Persona.
Yeah, that's funny because my boyfriend has an entire shelf of Sailor Moon stuff and
Really?
Sailor Moon figures, as well as Dragon Ball Z figures and pop dolls. It's so beautiful. And then he has a shelf for all of his Converse and everything. His room is so organized in comparison to mine, which is a hot mess of books and clothes and everything else.
I'm kind of organized. I have some books over there. I have more books over there. My fiance actually built me a coffin for my shoes.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna try to turn this around. I don't know if you can see there's a coffin over there.
That's amazing, and also that's really cool.
Yeah, I love shoes. I have a bad shoe obsession. So
See, I really don't necessarily love shoes, but I know you have to have them. But I do have there are cute shoes that I do see, but I barely buy clothes for myself sometimes. It takes a lot for me to buy new things for me. It's bad, but I can buy new things for everybody else, though. It's crazy.
Yeah, I definitely like to buy for other people, but I've actually gotten better about it with the pandemic because I used to always buy new clothes for myself, and I still do, but I feel like with the pandemic, because you're not leaving the house as much, it's harder to justify clothing purchases. So now that things are getting back to normal and I have places I can start wearing stuff again too, I might pick up that habit again. But I've been pretty okay with my shopping issues. I just donated a bunch of clothes. I'm a hoarder. I hold on to everything. Like I said, I haven't grown since the 6th grade, and my fashion sense hasn't changed that much since then. Mm-hmm. So I still have my trip pants and my UFO pants from 2003, 2004, just chilling in my closet.
Yeah. See, I still had at a certain point, I still have clothes from college, actually, from about 2014 that I probably need to get rid of. Then there are some that I won't get rid of because I bought them when I studied abroad, and I don't ever want to give those up because it makes
Where
me
did you
feel
study?
like I studied abroad in Ghana, West
wow.
Africa, for a month, and those clothes and those dresses and all the stuff I bought over there doesn't fit me anymore, but I still have them because I just feel like, who really has,
Wait, where are you gonna find that again? You have to go back there.
It? Right. So it's just like, I don't want to give that up. So
I wouldn't.
Yeah, so I still have it, and then it's like I went to Spain and I have a dress that I bought from there, but that still doesn't fit either. So it's just kind of like, I just don't have the heart to let that stuff go.
That's when you just put everything into a vacuum seal bag and you just stuff it somewhere. That's what I started doing. I started vacuum sealing things I don't wear and I probably won't wear again, but I'm too like emotionally attached to get rid of them.
Yeah, it's hard. But thank you again for coming on my show, Brittany Blake. And
thank you for having me.
Yes, this has been an amazing conversation. So this is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and if you want to follow Brittany Blake everywhere you want to follow her, where she said, please follow her and support anything that she's doing. And I look forward to seeing you next weekend. Okay?
I'll see you next weekend. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm, or download the free Anchor app to get started. Okay, so since I had the amazing Casey Dillon on my show, and I want to thank her for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, I want to take this time to actually put over this event a whole lot more, and I'm going to be doing it within the coming weeks leading up to the event. So, the BellaDonna Division is one of the first all-female women's promotions in the South, and I'm so proud that it's taking place in my home state of Alabama. Whoop whoop, sweet home Alabama. Roll Tide roll. I'm not a Crimson Tide fan. I just say that because it's just in my bones. Either way, I'm just really excited that this is taking place in Alabama. So the event Genesis is taking place on Saturday, May the 15th, 2021 at the Gadsden Mall in Gadsden, Alabama. And if you need the address, here it is. It's 1001 Rainbow Drive, Gadsden, Alabama 35901. The general admission for tickets is $15 and ringside seats are $20, and the doors open at 6 p.m. But before the doors open for the Genesis event itself, legendary wrestler and all-around future Hall of Famer Jazz is going to be having a wrestling seminar that you can sign up for only $50, and that's going to take place at the Gadsden Mall from 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. So if you want to take that opportunity to learn from one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time, please do so. Go and get this class, And plus, she's also booked, to wrestle with us, on that show too. So please take that opportunity to do that as she goes on her retirement tour. And then after that, of course, you have the Genesis event, and it's going to feature some of the greatest, talent that we have, in women's wrestling today. Some of these women have, various backgrounds and various different, fighting styles, and they have fought all over the world and competed in various promotions, some of them even in WWE a couple of times, and some of them on Impact and other places as well. So first we have NWA legend Joyce Grabble's going to be there, Harley Fairfax, Valentina Loca, a UK star by the name of Eden Von England, Jocelyn Navarro, who's a Jamaican superstar, Ariella Ariella Nix, Nina Monet, Gabby Ortiz, BB Ryan, Trixie Shalance Royal, Heather Monroe, Rachel Raylin, Brittany Blake, and the weapon of all destruction, the WOAD, is going to be there. And also, I'm going to be making my official debut as a commentator, and I'm going to be commentating alongside Brittany Hufflin. She is amazing, and we're going to try to, I'm going to try to keep up with her as much as I possibly can, because this is going to be my first time, so I'm really excited, to be a color commentator for this event. Women's wrestling has always been something I've been passionate about. So the idea that something like this, is happening in my home state and I get to be a part of it, just really moves me, and it'll always, touch me to no end. And hopefully, this can be the start of something new in my life. No High School Musical though. So, so we're going to tear it down and we're going to tear it up at Genesis, which is basically, the beginning of things. If you know anything, about, biblical knowledge, Genesis is translated to the beginning. And hopefully this can be the beginning of something great that can continue to happen in the state of Alabama, for women's wrestling. So I'm really excited this is happening. Again, this Genesis is taking place Saturday, May the 15th, 2021, with the doors opening at 6 p.m. And you can buy your tickets at this link that can be found on the Instagram page for the BellaDonna Division at BellaDonna Division, and on their Facebook page, which is the BellaDonna Division. And here's the link. It's https thebelladonnadivision.square.site. But you can find the link on their social media platforms. Please follow them on Instagram and on Facebook. And of course, I'm going to be posting about it on my social media handles as well. So with that in mind, please support women's wrestling. Even the wrestling that you may or may not know about, please support it. The wrestling that's going on in your hometown, please support it. And just, raise your voices for women's wrestling, because there is a revolution happening and it's only going to get greater from here. So please support us and please come out and support women's wrestling here in Alabama. All right. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And I want to take this time to really absolutely thank Brittany Blake, for coming on my show. And I really hope you enjoyed our conversation that we had, because I definitely sure did. I love opening, my doors to all these people who I'm meeting for the very first time and being able to talk to them about wrestling and talk to them about their careers and everything. So it means the world to me to be able to have, so many women from this show that I'm actually a part of, be on my show. And I'm just really pumped and excited for it. So, like the promo said, the show is the show is next weekend at the Gaston Mall. And, you can buy tickets, because I actually have the link to it on my Instagram and my Twitter page, on at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and on Twitter at Hardy WrestlePod. Please buy your tickets. General admission $15, ringside $20. Please support women's wrestling in the South. I'm so excited. Please support me, because I'm commentating for the first time. It's going to be cool. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Boom, boom. So, if you want to listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, you can listen to it on all platforms, on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, on my YouTube channel, Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and just anywhere you can get your podcast. Please listen to it, support it, like, share, subscribe, leave, comments and ratings and all of that. So, just to get the word out there about my show and to just continue to support it. I found out last night that I have over 2,000 plays, and I'm just really grateful that, people are actually even pressing play to listen to me. I'm just really grateful for all of you guys for supporting my show and listening to me talk about wrestling and all of that, because it's amazing to do, because I just really love this sport so very much. And what's amazing is it's to be able to meet other people who love to talk about wrestling and actually want to, you know, be on my show, it just means the absolute world to me. And the sky is the limit, and there's so much growth that, you know, will happen and continue to happen. So I'm just really grateful, you know, for the show growing as much as it has, and I, you know, hope and pray it continues to grow. So I hope you're being your best self and you're staying safe and, you know, living your best life, even though we're still, you know, struggling with this panorama. And also still struggling with various things, but I just hope that you're still making the best out of whatever situations that you're going through. And even if you don't have any, you know, direct situations right now, I just hope that you have the perseverance to, you know, push through life and, you know, be your best self and just be the light in the world, you know, that's just so full of so many dark things. So with that in mind, I'm also releasing another episode this weekend featuring another talented woman by the name of the Weapon of all destruction, or in her case, the weapon of ass destruction, the Woad. I'm going to put that episode out either today or tomorrow, so please be on the lookout for that. But thank you for supporting the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. This is your girl, Stephanie Hardy, and until next time, bye, y'all.